Hello, and thank you for watching Yin Yang Gemini. It's me, John, the eponymous person of the YouTube channel thing. Right, anyway, long day. So I'm just gonna kind of give a quick little shout out to a little movie my friend Terry Pelsnick um, recommended to me over the weekend called I Kill Giants. I didn't remember it or recognize it until I watched the trailer, and then I did remember I read the graphic novel a while ago. I don't even remember how long ago it came out or the circumstances of my reading, but I remember reading it, and the glare from my glasses is annoying me. So, all right. But I liked it then. And then there's the movie, and it's on Hulu. It's probably on other stuff too. I don't know. I just know that it's on Hulu. And to me, it's sort of like it's sort of like if someone tried to remake the first Thor movie, but we're really trying to remake Pan's Labyrinth instead while doing that. There's a little bit of Donnie Darko kind of thrown in there for good measure, and just a pinch of Goonies. Um, so that all being said, it was really good. It ticked a lot of boxes. It kind of had that, um, little kid heroic sort of thing, which is fun. And I think one of the biggest things that kind of played about in terms of, for me, Pan's Labyrinth is, you have this kind of loner girl who everyone thinks is kind of running this fantasy world because her life is kind of shite in a lot of ways. But that fantasy world is so real, and it kind of makes you question whether or not that it is real or not. And if I remember correctly, with Pan's Labyrinth, I think Guillermo del Toro was even saying that you can kind of determine it how you want to be, whether this is all just psychological and she really did die and that was all just made up stuff, or you could be cool and the fantasy was the real part. She was tapped into stuff other people weren't, and that she wasn't dead. Now in this one, Barbara, the lead girl, she doesn't die, or maybe die or whatever, but it has that same sort of, is it psychological? Is the fantasy world kind of real and no one else is kind of noticing it but her? The tragedy and trauma that she's going through left her open to be able to see this stuff. But it was really cool on a lot of levels, and it was really worth watching. It's like hour 40 something odd minutes, so it's under 2 hours. Um, so the pacing's pretty good with it. There's not a lot of sort of uh, uh, wasted time in it. Zoe Saldana is good as just the sort of school counselor, so it's kind of like a different thing if you're used to seeing her on Star Trek or the Marvel and the MCU stuff, or even if she's got thrown in with Pirates of the Caribbean or something like that. She's just a school psychologist. She's like wearing flannel. She's got like a scene where you see her husband and her kid, and her husband is Noel Clark. I think that's his name. So it's for Doctor Who fans, Mickey the Idiot. So somehow people keep pairing him off with these gorgeous women like Freya again, and I hope I'm not horribly destroying her name that badly. Played Martha in Doctor Who, so Mickey the Idiot hooked up with Martha in Doctor Who's effing doctor, and he's an idiot. And then in this, they got him paired off with Zoe Saldana. So I mean, he obviously is related to somebody. So he keeps on winning the sort of TV wife with that. But anyway, it was just sort of like Mickey the Idiot in this, really. But it was good. It was good. It was enjoyable. It was enjoyable in a lot of ways, and including one of the ways where the runes that she was using. Now the mythology that they used behind it was a little off from what I know of the sort of Norse mythology bit, saying that the giant's name was and killed himself and tore him apart, as opposed to Ymir and other things tearing him apart and building the world out of that. You gotta world build your own stuff too. I understand, but it's just those little things that I notice that makes me twitchy. Anytime I watch any of the Marvel Thor stuff or anything, it's one of the reasons I never got into Thor in the comics, because it was so inaccurate to the mythologies. Um, so I'm just sort of like, no, a little bit, but you roll with it, and it's neat. It's by the producers who did some Harry Potter movies too. So when they do some of the animation, they're like, oh, well, this type of giant does this, and this type of giant does that. The different uh, sort of imaginary things that you see, I guess, from her perspective of it, we're all kind of different and neat. In that same way that in Deathly Hollows, when they were reading from Beetle the Bard, that whole thing with the three brothers and the Deathly Hollows, like that whole animated sequence was kind of different and neat. These were kind of like that too. But it almost has that same kind of Harry Potter feel where it's like really cozy, and even if you're falling into this sort of dangerous, magical sort of world or anything like that, it's still neat, it's still fun, it still feels cozy. So you have also, and there's something else I noticed before I get back to the runes, I'm going to forget if I don't do this, is it's supposed to take place, I think they were saying New Jersey. So coastal New Jersey actually looked a little further north than New Jersey. Now, I'm not an expert on New England. I haven't really been. But it didn't look New Jersey. It either looked sort of Carolina-y or a little bit further northy. But again, no expert on it. And again, no expert on that area of the woods. But you had the school, the town, their house on the beach, all this other stuff, all had a certain look. Then she goes into the forest. And the forest looked Pacific Northwest. And I don't know if just the forest over there in New Jersey, wherever they were filming in New England, because it was definitely New England where this other stuff was at. I'm good enough at kind of telling place that it was like, oh, well, it's definitely at least sort of New England or Atlantic coast, obviously, definitely. But the woods and stuff look like Pacific Northwest. And if, other than the so many movies and TV shows and stuff that have been filmed in like Vancouver or something like that. I mean, God, I watched enough X-Files and Highlander in the 90s alone, let alone all the X-Files I watch now, or the other shows that have been syndicated from Canada in the past 30 years and everything. That's all filmed in Vancouver. To know what it kind of looks like. And it really looked Vancouvery, British Columbia, Pacific Northwest. And I kind of hope it was, because it does kind of give a different feel than the other things. So when you're really in the woods, you're kind of in her own little world. Even when she's got her little friend with her at a couple points, it's still kind of her own world. So having that sort of different feel from the uh, the place where the town is, and her school and her house and all the stuff she's avoiding is there, but the stuff she's confronting and everything has a different feel to it, have a different look to it. And as a sidebar, I apologize if I sound a little weird. I was sick all weekend. It was one of those, hey, my allergies are really bad right now. Great, great. So, oh God, it's not my allergies. I'm actually sick. I was like, oh crap, I feel sick. I feel sick. And I'm like, I'm shivering. I got a fever. What? And I wake up sweaty the next day. It was a fever. What the hell? That just sort of, So massive amounts of C, massive amounts of my little snake juice solution with apple cider vinegar and lemon juice and oregano oil and apple juice, because I can't drink the other stuff without the apple juice or I'll die. My throat will just go and die. Anyway, so having those two different feels in those things actually look kind of cool. Uh, it was a subtle way to bring you kind of into her world with that. on top of that, I do want to kind of give a shout out to I think the director said, all right, well, at one point in time, we're going to have all this stuff in like this abandoned train yard. And he's looking at the production design. The production designer was like, all right, abandoned train yard. And the director goes, I want it to look like Laura Palmer could be killed there. And the production designer goes, I got you. And that's what, because it seriously looks like, it looks like the whole thing from like Twin Peaks and stuff, where Laura Palmer was killed. And Ronette Polanski sort of escaped from. So the rooms, going back to going back. It's like Neil Peart on the drums. Actually looks kind of cool with the Halloween lights I got going on all year round because it's me and Halloween. So, the runes, it looked like they actually kind of used fairly accurately. There's a whole part where she's doing these invocations of Thurzaz, which is Thor's rune, which is also like the thorn or a hammer, which is the line, and the little tick tick thing is kind of in the middle. If it was on top, it'd be Punjo. If it's in the middle, it's Thurzaz. And her invocations of that were pretty. It seemed. I mean, they seemed like they could be genuine. Like this is something that someone would actually do. It's pretty correct from my limited understanding of the runes and their deeper meanings other than just the letters. This sort of divinatorial symbolist sort of meaning. So, if you get the whole sort of, if John Anthony West had switched and Schwaller de Lubitsch hadn't done Egypt and did, you know, Sweden and Norway and all that other stuff, this is the stuff they'd come up with the runes. And then there's these combo sort of sigil runes and everything like that. I won't get into other stuff with that, but so some of the combinations that they had painted in and built in, and for the reasons that they had them in these different protective ways and everything, actually made kind of sense. So she's doing all this protection stuff and using algaes, which is sort of that elkhorn, which is the line with the sort of V down in it, with the line sticking up a little bit. So, if it's an arrow, it's tewaz, which is tears. But if you kind of flip the arrow down, algaes being protection. And they like Ingwa's on there, which had been like Frey's rune on it, which was, and that whole context with the protection and the sort of life and fecundity and stuff and everything like that makes sense. The sort of combinations and again like the sigils that she was kind of using for protection against these like harbingers and everything like that seemed to make sense. Excuse me, that was a bad one. Seemed to make sense in that uh, sort of sigil context, and they would work together, which I thought was cool because it kind of adds in those other layers of, if you're just sort of watching, you don't know anything about them, or you don't really care. It's like, oh, okay, runes, it's just runes, symbols, okay, cool, great. Okay, it looks weird or anything, but if you've heard a little bit about it, read a little bit about it, even if it's like Tolkien, sorry, again, but above even like the original Firth arcs or anything like that, it still kind of has this authenticity to it, or at the very least, if I'm not dropping my phone, at the very least, it could seem genuine or seem to make sense or anything like that. So that was kind of a cool layered in part with that too. So overall, I Kill Giants. It's at least on Hulu. I think you can order it off maybe Amazon. I think I looked it up on there to put it on my wish list. And I would imagine there's other places you could watch it, and you probably pay your $3 or whatever on YouTube or uh, other places like that. It should be around somewhere with it. But it's really cool, like good redemption stuff. There's still a little bit of saddy bits at the end, but it doesn't get as saddy bit as it could. and again, it has that sort of not choose your own adventure ending, but it can work for you on if you're in a I like watching this stuff, everything's because they're just sort of, feel good movies, but I'm fairly reductionist materialist and everything's just the psychology of it. Or if you're a little bit, cooler and you're sort of like, oh no, like there could actually be some of this stuff going on, or she's really tapped into something genuine, and you can uh, enjoy it on that level too. It leaves a little bit of that open, like Pan's Labyrinth, that it could be this other stuff too. And again, there's a little touch of Donnie Darko in there uh, with his too, and a little flavoring of Goonies. At least I thought. And again, this is just my thoughts on the subject, my review of it, or anything. Good movie, fun. I'm watching it again to make I can, and it's something that can be useful too if you're in some sort of academic or therapeutic environment too, because you can use the psychological bit, especially as working on safety and emotion and loss and future planning, and there's a lot of therapeutic stuff that if you used movies and or you could for some sort of therapeutic group or anything with kids, it can work in there with that as well, and not just a sort of like, if I need to, I can write a note about this sort of thing. But no, it really genuinely could, and even if you just sort of let it run and then talk about it later, or do the start, stop, talk about what goes on, um, or anything else like that. So, if you have that, like I do, where you're in sort of a therapeutic environment with kids, you can put this on there, and that'll help. You can kind of add it to your sort of movie library that you can use, depending, how much turnover you have with your kids. I don't know, but it can be used for that too. Miyazaki movies work for those as well, and at least for the kids that I have in the class that I work with now, it works for them pretty well too, and they buy into it. But again, I am in this sort of like bad news bears sort of class with it, this little bit more nerdy, which is pretty good fit with me, which is fine. I get a dose of ghetto jerkdom in other ways from other classes and stuff too. So it's kind of nice to go into my class and someone asks me, "All right, well, and with Lord of the Rings or this, well, how does that work?" I'm like, "You got to read the Silmarillion, and that'll tell you." And they just sort of look at me like, it's like, maybe I'll read the Silmarillion for class, and they're like, "Oh, that's much better." So, or just put on Bob Ross. That doesn't work. Watch I Kill Giants at Home. Put on Bob Ross for your kids, or the other way around, whichever works. So I've really padded the crap out of this, and on that note, we'll shut it down because I'm all over the place, and I'm just talking to talk at this point in time, meaning nothing. So, thanks for watching. Peace out. Stay groovy. Uh, Listen to pug snores if you want your ASMR. That's what I should do on here. Probably a whole pug ASMR thing on here. That would probably blow up. So yeah, good night. Enjoy the movie. Enjoy other movies. Enjoy a bunch of stuff. Enjoy everything.